Dearest Father, closest friend, most beautiful, most beautiful. Dearest Father, closest friend, most beautiful, most beautiful.
Closest friend, most beautiful, most beautiful. Dearest Father, closest friend, most beautiful, most beautiful, most beautiful. There are no words, nothing left. Nothing left. Our love sings to you. There are no words. There's nothing left. There's nothing left. Our love sings to you. Dearest Father, closest friend, most beautiful, most beautiful, most beautiful. Dearest Father, closest friend, most beautiful, most beautiful. Say, dearest Father, our closest friend, most beautiful, most beautiful. Say, dearest Father, closest friend, most beautiful, yeah, most beautiful. There's not there's nothing left. Nothing left. Our hearts, our love sing to you. There are no words. There's nothing left. Our sing, our love pours out to you, Lord. There are no words. Nothing left. Our love pours, nothing left, oh Lord. No words. There's nothing left. Our love pours out to you, Lord. There are no With just one look, everything changes. I'm captivated. I'll never be the same. With just one look, everything changes. I'm captivated. I'll never be the same. Just one look. Just one look. Everything changes. I'm captivated. I'll never be the same. With just one look.
Bless the Lord, bless the Lord. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. This is Pastor Errol Williams here for another daily online Bible studies. Thank you so much for joining us. That was the Ellington family singing Most Beautiful. Truly, truly most beautiful family and most beautiful song. And to God be the glory. Great things He has done. Well, I hope you're having a great time with this amazing weather that we're having. I don't know how long it will last. Went for a walk myself today, just for a short while, but it was truly beautiful. And what was amazing about it, actually, I didn't even take my phone with me. That was strange. So I thought I would just go and have some time out. Good evening to everyone and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Indeed, a beautiful song indeed. Well, let's begin with prayer and then let's get going and let's see what the Lord will have for us in terms of His word for us tonight. Let's pray. Father, what a joy to serve you. What a joy to have access to your throne. What a joy to exist in your kingdom. Thank you so much for your faithfulness, your kindness towards us, for allowing us this great and wonderful privilege. And as we indeed, oh God, go into your word tonight, whatever passage we may look at, have your way with us. Speak to us as you always do. Thank you so much for everything. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, our focus has been on a Wednesday for some time now. I'm hoping to finish it today. Is on the dealing with conflict resolution or handling difficult conversation. Taken from one of my book, I'm not sure which one it is in terms of position, whether it's the third or the fourth book. And the book is entitled Tips for Dealing with Difficult Conversations. So there are 50 things that I talk about as to tips that we can use in our lives. And the word tips stands for techniques, ideas, principles, and strategies. TIPS, techniques, ideas, principles, and strategies. So I just want to share with you those 50. I will recap on the list that I've done before. I think I've been through 21, so I've been pretty slow on it for some strange reason. But we will indeed try to speed up that process today if we can. So let's head over to the chat room and let's see who we have with us today. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Sister Annette Williams, thank you so much for joining us. Really do appreciate you being here with us tonight. Sister Natasha McLean, greetings. Sister Mavis Jones, welcome. Thank you for joining us and great to have you. Truly was most beautiful. Yeah, I was singing it before we started. Most beautiful. Yeah, absolutely. Sister Pauline Gale, greetings to you too. Sister Juliet Charles, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And the wonderful Clive Williams, thank you, sir, for joining us. Do appreciate you, and everyone else, do thank you. Wherever you're watching from and the platform, thank you for joining us. We do thank you. All right, then, we're not going to waste any time. If you have any questions for me, please do go ahead. Put those in the chat room and I will do my best to come back to that. We've been talking a little bit about Marvia Hunt, welcome from the USA. I tell you, apart from Jamaica, I'm not even sure if it's Jamaica, but apart from Jamaica, US of A is my favorite country. I'd love to live there actually, but I can't at the moment. My wife won't come with me. She says she ain't coming. So I said, but you have to. She said, no, you one go. Yeah, I just love America. I love when I go to America. So thanks for joining us, Marvia. Appreciate you being here with us. We do sincerely give God thanks for you. All right, then. Let's get going then. I've been looking at a really interesting subject, which is handling difficult conversation or dealing with conflict. So let's go straight over to it. Okay. Right. Now, again, this is just recap, so I'm not going to spend much time on this. One of the key thing with regards to the top 7 tips is really, if you were to put it into one word, is to be a very good listener. And one of the things I've noticed is that we are not very good at listening. We are good at talking, and we are good at reading and writing, but when it comes to listening, it's a totally different story. As I've often said, we hear with our ears, but we listen with our mind, and it's a totally different story. So there are some tips if you want to be able to deal with conflict, be able to manage conflict. One of the key resolution, the key way of trying to resolve things is to be a very, very good listener. I'm telling you, it's one of the key skill. It's the key skill when it comes to counseling, when it comes to deal with conflicts or difficult conversation. Be a good listener. Now let me give you a scripture for that, and that's James 1 verse 19. And it says, be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger. I mean, that is just amazing. Be quick to listen. Very, very good. Slow to speak, and slow to wrath. And if you look at it in the order in which it's said, be quick to listen. So that's number 1. Then be slow to speak. Don't talk. Don't be too quick and ready to talk. And don't allow your anger to boil up. Control yourself. Neutralize or control your feelings. That's powerful. All right, let's move on. This is just recap. Now, on point number 7, evaluate the whole message. Remember what I said. This is really important. That when you communicate with someone, there are 3 elements you should be concerned about, that you should be observing, that you should be conscious of from your point of view and from the other person's point of view. And it's words, tone of voice, and body language. Powerful stuff. Now, I want to say this, okay? If you notice on the graph, you will notice that body language is 55% of the communication. So your body language is telling and giving more information than you can imagine. There is a term that we use called body talk. Your body is always talking. It's sending messages to the other side. So when people understand you, or when they listen to you to understand you, 55%, listen to this carefully, 55% of what they understood is from your body language. 55%. And then if you look at it, 38% is from the words that, not the words you speak, but the way you say what you say. Therefore, 93% of your communication is done non-verbally. That's powerful. So when we talk about your body language, we're talking about your mouth, your appearance, your gesture, your posture, your voice, which will, it's there. And also your eyes. Very important that you remember those. Now, let me say this again. So going back to point number 7, the idea here, when you're communicating with somebody, is to make sure that you're evaluating the whole message. How do you get the message from them? By what they say, the way they say it, and their body language. This is powerful information. All right, let's move on. As I said, this is just a recap. Now, the next few we talked about making sure that you control yourself, your feelings. You don't become too irate and angry and upset. Listen more. Never give control of who you are to other people. Create a playlist of your favorite music if you want to calm yourself down. Before you begin difficult conversation, never assume. And because this is one of the dangerous words here, this word assume. And I just want to spell it out for you, boy. It's ASSUME. Try not to make no assumption, because you'll either make an ass of yourself and me. See, assumption is dangerous. Never make decisions based on assumption, because you make an ass out of yourself and the other person. Okay? So it's very, very important. If you offend somebody, forgive. If you have been offended, decide to forgive. And if you have hurt somebody, apologize. Sometimes people find it very difficult to apologize, and also difficult to forgive. We talked a lot about forgiveness, which is really a very, very important aspect of relationship. Right, let's move on. As I said, these are recap, and then I'll come back to some of those points in a moment. Now, as I made mention before, forgiveness is a decision you make, and that's very important. And I love point number 16, actually, because the more positive you are, the more difficult you make it for other people to be difficult to you. Because negative people don't know how to deal with positive people. They have no idea. And I talked about set the scene with the intro. I talked about, structure your conversation with 4 P's. I talked about end your conversation with a close and use a 10-8-10, which is really in this diagram here. Okay? The beginning, the middle, and the end, using the 10-8-10 structure. And briefly, in any presentation you give, whether you are doing it at work, home, wherever, in a brief conversation, whatever, always structure it by thinking of the beginning, the middle, and the end. Very simple. At the beginning, you want to make sure you have an intro. Okay, let people know why they should be interested, what is in it for them, their need, how long will they take, when will they be able to respond, and what it really is the objective, and so on. The 4 P's, I got this from John Cleese in 40 Towers. I mean, this is so powerful, actually. What's the position? What's the problem? What's the possibility? Proposal. Okay. The position is that traveling from London to Birmingham. Problem? Broken down on the in the M4. M4? Is that how you get to Birmingham? M1. That's at the M1 on this one. I'm broken down on the M1. That's the problem. Possibilities, well, I could call the AA, call a friend. I could walk. I could hitchhike. Proposal, I think I'll call the AA and see how we go from there. So it's a really powerful technique. And right at the end, you want to do your close, conclusion, link things together. Have I achieved the objective? The objective which we had set from the beginning here. Have we achieved it? Summarizing and emotion. Are there any Q&A? And what I'm suggesting is at the beginning, you spend 10% of the time that you have for that presentation, explaining the beginning. The large majority of time should be on the middle, and 10%. That's why we call it the 10-8-10. You could make it whatever you like. You could call it 15, whatever, 60, 40, 30, whatever. It doesn't matter. You could call it whatever you like. But I call it the 10-8-10. And it's a really powerful method when you sit to have a difficult conversation or to deal with a conflict, you make absolutely certain that before you start, you've structured this thing out. Everybody can easily follow. And it really does help to resolve issues. It really does. A powerful, powerful point. Welcome, Sister Jenny Wind. What is the overall attitude that underlies an Antichrist? What is the overall attitude that underlies an Antichrist? Very, very good question, actually. Greetings, Pastor Pat and Pastor Lucas. Greetings to you. And Sister Emma Mulligan. Welcome. Now, let me just look at that question. What is the overall attitude that underlies an Antichrist? Well, I would suggest that the answer is actually in the question. And the question really talks about Antichrist. And the word anti means against Christ. And that is the attitude that underlines it. They're against Christ. They're against anything that Christ stands for. Are you with me? If you look at the world today and you see what's taking place in terms of stealing, it's against Christ. Murder, it's against Christ. Sexual immorality, it's against Christ. These are the attitudes that underlies the Antichrist. He opposes anything that is Christ-like. And hence the word anti-Christ, against Christ. It stands against Christ in every way, shape, or form. I hope that makes sense. Welcome, Sister Rosalita. Lavine, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you with us tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, as I made mention before, I think we have finished with that point, so let's move on to the next thought. Now, I think this is where we left off and see if we can complete this. We're not far from the end. So, handling difficult conversation. I mentioned before, when you are dealing with challenges like this and difficult, always make sure you have your facts. You would never go to a court of law and not have your facts, because you'd be thrown out of the courtroom. So it's extremely important that we have our facts. Very important that we have our facts. And we know exactly what it is that we are talking about. I'm just trying to check something here if I've... Okay. And one of the key thing is, I want you to notice the amount of time I wrote this down 3 times. Preparation, preparation, preparation. I shared with you about file it, action it. And that is one of the best way to deal with emails, letters, issues, etc. Use what I call the FAT system. Let me explain the FAT system again. The FAT system is a very simple technique. If you got emails, if you've got problems, or if you've got list of things to do today, you got maybe 10 things to do today, 20, 30, 40, 50 even. You got emails to respond to. You've got all these things. Well, I want you to use my FAT system. My FAT system is very, very easy. I just deal with easy systems. Well, you may have some stuff to do, but they're important, but they're not urgent. You got to do them at some point, but it's just not important. File it. File it. In other words, put a date as to when you're going to deal with it. Put it in the filing cabinet somewhere with a date on it. Put some form of reminder in your calendar. You're not going to deal with it today because it's not urgent. You can't do everything. So this one, I'll do that next week Monday. I'll do that next week Tuesday. I'll do that in July. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do it in August. File it. It's very simple. It's not difficult to do. You're not going to do that today. So I'm going to put a date in my diary as to when, a date and time as to when I'm going to do that. Very simple. Yeah? Okay, let's move on. Well, there are some things that are urgent and important and have to be done now. Well, very simple. Action it. Action it. Deal with it now. That's not rocket science. That's not difficult. Right, let's move on. Well, there are some things that don't need to take up any time. Trash it. Throw it in the bin. My favorite key in my keyboard is the DEL button. I love that button. Delete, 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 delete. Sometimes I delete things too quickly and I pay the price for it. But that's my favorite button, delete. And I think I even got 2. Have I? I thought I had 2 delete buttons. I've only got 1. Yeah, that's my favorite button. I thought I had 2. Yeah, it's my favorite button right there, delete. So the system is very, very simple. Nothing complicated about it. So let's move on. What do I mean by use procrastination wisely? Procrastination means that you delay things, you postpone things, you put things off. Well, that's what this is. That's what file it is. You are delaying it. You postpone it. So procrastination is not a bad word if used wisely. There are some things you should procrastinate that you shouldn't jump into. Now, avoid fruitless and unnecessary difficult conversation like the plague. Well, that's really what this trash it business is really. Avoid them. Get rid of them. Very simple. Aha. My brothers and sisters, one of the greatest skill, apart from listening, that you're going to need is to be assertive. What does the word assertive means? It means to treat people the way you would like to be treated. That's a very good definition, I think. Decide what to say. It's point 28 is a very powerful assertiveness tip. Deal with things positively. Negotiate effectively. Negotiation is a skill that you ought to learn. So there are certain skills which I mentioned before. One is listen. Make sure you know how to listen. Make sure you know how to negotiate. And make sure you know how to be assertive. These are interpersonal skills that you need when dealing with conflicts. Always honor your word. Let your yea be yea and your nay be yea. Approach management wisely. So what I mean by that is when you're approaching higher management, you need to, let's say you're in the workplace, which is really in the workplace. When you approach them and you're going to deal with conflicts, you need to be very careful and very wise. Sometimes people go with a lot of hostility and, they're not thought things through. I mentioned the point about preparation, which is very, very powerful and important. Now, present the bar. Now let me explain what the bar is, and it's there anyway. The BAR. Take people to the bar. When you are dealing with people, and you really want to win them over, take them to the bar. I'm not talking about alcohol or the pub. I'm talking about sell them benefits. In other words, when you are trying to win people over, sell benefit, sell advantages, and results. You'd be amazed how you get people's attention when you show them how they can benefit, how they can take advantage, how they can get some result out of this. You'd be amazed because people are always thinking, what's in it for me? That is people's favorite radio station. Is called WIIFM. That's people's favorite radio station. WIIFM. WIIFM. In other words, what's in it for me? Because people are always asking that. Whenever you're trying to sell something to somebody, you're trying to convince them or trying to influence them, they're always thinking, what's in it for me? That's their favorite radio station. So always remember, take people to the bar. Now, the 80-20 rule is really a very, very powerful concept. 80-20 rule. What does that mean? It means that 80% of the result generally comes from only 20% of, say, the customers or the people. And 20% of the benefits come from 80%. I want to say that again. The 80-20 rule is a very powerful principle, is that 80% of the benefits comes from 20% of the people. And at the same time, if you look at it the other way, 20% of the benefit comes from 80%. So what people do, let's use this concept in business for a moment, and we're talking about the 80-20 rule. Companies say, if 80% of my profit comes from 20% of the customers, then I should spend most of my time with the 20% that gives me the 80%. That makes sense, don't you think? If I'm in business and 80% of my profit is coming from only 20% of the people, then I should focus a lot more of my time on that segment of the market that give me such great returns. And you could use this 80-20 principle in many aspects in life, by the way. It really is a powerful principle that has been adopted over the years. So I strongly recommend that you think about that. And you could find out more information about that on the internet as well. Okay? Now, if you're going to deal with a difficult conversation and you're going to deal with some form of conflict, you want to make absolutely certain that you choose the right environment for it. In front of other people is not going to be wise, even though people would love that. Never be late for a meeting. One of the things that mesmerizes me, I'm always mesmerized by this in the last 12 months. How anybody can be late for a Zoom meeting. I don't understand how. And especially when they're at home. It baffles me. I've never been late for one, but then people are always going to tell me, oh, Errol, you don't understand. Oh, Errol, you're not in my position. I hear you. I hear you, but I think it's a matter of excuses, personally. Now, the KISS principle is a very effective one. Keep things short and sweet, man. And always remember this. Point number 39. Point number 39. I think it was Bishop Bernard Morris that shared this point with us at one of our meetings. And I thought, wow, coming from an accountant, made a lot of sense. And this is what he said, and I quote, "If it's not in writing, it doesn't exist." End of quote. If it's not in writing, brothers and sisters, it doesn't exist. Now, that may not be true in all cases, but I tell you what, there have been a lot of arguments that could have been resolved if it was in writing. Isn't it amazing that we have a contract of employment in writing? Isn't it amazing that we have birth certificate, death certificate, wedding certificate in writing? Very important contract in writing. Why? Just in case there is some form of dispute, the word of mouth is not going to cut it, because it's just your word against mine. But when it's in writing, it tells a totally different story altogether. If you bought a house, they would have given you the title deed once you've purchased it. You got it in writing. So if anyone comes and challenge you, you can say, well, you could say, well, here is the title deed. I've got it, it's in writing. When you go to the shop and you purchase some item, they give you in writing, right? Some invoice or some receipt of some sort that you can prove that I purchased this item. So if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. One of the things that is very, very important, we talked about being assertive, but is being able to manage your stress. Because one of the things for certain is, as you go through conflict, one of the things that's definitely going to happen to you is that your stress level may increase. Wow. Right. Point number 42. Wow. You know, it's amazing. Point number 42. And probably this is one of my biggest message for tonight in point number 42. So I'm going to change the color on this one. And it's that master feedback. In other words, sometimes when you're going through difficult conversations, people tell you the truth because they're either trying to get back at you or they're trying to hurt you. So what tends to happen is people give you the real feedback at those opportune moments to try and hurt you. I was talking to my wife one day. We were having a heated discussion many years ago. And she said something to me that really shook me up. And I remember saying to her, I said to her, and if we were not having this argument, you probably would never have told me the truth. Now I want to ask you a question. I want you to really listen to me carefully. And I'll ask you a question. I'm going to tell you a story as I ask you this question in a moment. Are you ready? Okay, here we go. I want you to imagine that you have 3 things to share with someone. 3 things. Okay, 3 things. Now, number 1 is really a very simple matter. You want to give feedback to somebody. But the first one is a very simple thing. Ooh, number 2 Wow. Wow. That's a biggie. Number 3. Wow, wow, wow. I say to that one, that is even bigger than number 2. I want you to get the picture first. Number 1 is simple. It's easy to share that one. But number 2, number 3, that's big. But you decide you're going to start with number 1, and just to break the ice, because you're giving this person some feedback about themselves. So you start to give some feedback on the first point. You're giving some feedback on the easy one. During your feedback on the easiest one, the person becomes very upset and starts to cry. The person picks up the chair as if to throw it across the room at you. They're really angry. They're shaking. They're really sobbing very, very hard. You ready for the question? Here's the question. If the person behaves so badly on the easy one, what do you think your chances will be of you telling them point number 2? Let me ask you another question. What do you think the chances are of you telling them number 3 if they behave so badly on number 1? I would say to you the chances are nil. I don't think you would at any time tell them. And the reason why you wouldn't tell them is because of how they behaved on the first one. Now here's my real question. Could it be possible that you're living with somebody who have never told you number 2 and number 3? Is it possible that you are living with somebody or working with somebody or going to church with somebody that you have never told them number 2 or number 3? And how many people have died not knowing number 2 and number 3? Have died never discussing number 2 and number 3 because they were too afraid. Because one thing that I have noticed is people hate feedback when the feedback is not what they want to hear. And that is terribly disappointing. I've seen it. I've seen how people behave in meetings when feedback has been given. I've seen them in tears. Oh yes, big preacher in tears. I've seen it. Because the majority of us only want to hear the good things. And so when it comes to dealing with conflict and dealing with difficult things, we can't take it. Somebody once taught me an assertiveness technique. It's called self-disclosure. So somebody walks up to me and it says, Errol Williams, I hate you because you're so stupid. And I was trained to say something like, I'm so sorry that you feel that way about me, but is there anything else about me that you don't like? You know, it's interesting, you know, we can become so upset and, you know, we now need to go to the doctor to get our tablets to calm us down. But why? Why should we allow people to dictate how we think and how we feel? Not me. I refuse it. So feedback is the breakfast of champions. Let me say this again. Feedback is the breakfast of champions. Have you ever wondered to yourself why the top athletes in the world hire a coach so that they can get some feedback? They pay for it. They actually pay somebody to give them feedback. We're getting it free and we can't take it. Because all we want to hear is how great we are, how wonderful we are, how marvelous we are. When it comes to getting some constructive feedback, ooh, Lord have mercy. I gotta tell you this amazing situation that happened to me. I was doing some management training for a company. I was charging them around 20 years ago. I was charging around £1,000 a day. So I wanted to impress my daughter, my eldest daughter, Samantha. So I said, why don't you come on a training program with me and see how Daddy is doing? I wanted to impress her, you know. I wanted her to see Daddy in action and Daddy at work. And she came with me for a week. She saw me in action, man. One evening we were driving home. So I wanted to really kind of do a bit more bragging about me, you know. So I said to her, give me some feedback. Because surely all she could tell me is, Daddy, you're awesome. Daddy, my gosh, Daddy, there's none like you, Daddy. Daddy, I just want to be like you. That's what I wanted to hear. That's what I was waiting for. That's not what I heard. I can't remember what she said, but I'll never forget how I felt. I didn't tell her. When she began to give me her feedback, it wasn't what I was hoping to hear. She was trying to correct me and certain things. And I remember thinking, without telling her, how dare her? Who does she think she is? This is how I'm thinking. I'm getting some feedback, and rather than be excited about the feedback, whether it's true or not, I became very upset and very disappointed. Thank God I've changed. And so that's the reason why I think I understand and can comprehend why people are so upset. I've seen people storm out of meetings, people in tears. I've seen it. And it's sad that we can't take feedback. And we make up every excuse as to why they're wrong. But let me say this again. Feedback is the breakfast of champions. And that's the truth and the reality on that. Right, let's then conclude. Now, I want you to notice here, I talk about develop your ASK. Wow. That is a powerful. What is ASK? ASK stands for attitude, and you might have heard it before, skills and knowledge. Now, if you want to become great, if you want to be able to deal with some of the big, tough challenges out there, conflicts, I strongly recommend that you develop your ASK, your attitude, skills. Now, I want to say this. The more you develop your attitude, skills, and knowledge, the more money you make, the more powerful you become, the more confident you become, and the more people want to be in your presence. Let me say it again. The more you develop your ASK, your attitude, skills, and knowledge, the more money you make, the more powerful you become, the more confident you become, and the more people want to be in your presence. When you develop your attitude, skills, and knowledge, you empower yourself. You don't need nobody else to empower you. You can empower yourself by developing this side of your life. In fact, when you develop your attitude, skills, and knowledge, you're developing your potential, your ability to do great things. That is a very powerful concept. Learn to love feedback. Invest in yourself wisely every day. Use the 4 principles of greater success. And let me just share that with you very briefly. I call it the 4 principles. So if I just draw 4 circles here, I think that would help me a great deal. And I want to just link them up together like so. Now, the first principle is your aim. Your aim. You must have a vision. You must have a goal. You're trying to resolve an issue. Step number 1 is to make sure you know what your aim is. Second thing, your plan. What's your plan? What's your strategy? Okay. Then you must action. And then you must review. This is what we call a cybernetic cycle. It just constantly, flow around and around and around. It's just constant, ongoing. So when you come to review, you want to review your aim. Have you achieved your aim? How appropriate, how effective, and what have I learned? Are you with me? So you're constantly asking yourself certain questions. Have I achieved the aim? How appropriate was the plan? How effective did I carry that out? What are some of the things I've learned to do or not to do on the next time? Very important. Mindset, very important that we improve our mindset. Always remember, we talked about this yesterday. Proverbs 119, verse 15. Okay, don't forget that. Verse 15. I will meditate in thy precepts and have respect unto thy ways. So be careful of your mind. See problems and challenges as opportunities. So one of the things I was taught was to stop using the word problem, stop using the word challenge, and use the word opportunity. And it's really a mindset change. It's not that anything has changed per se. It's just my mindset has changed, which means that I deal with things differently. Use positive affirmation with attention, conviction, interest, and desire. We call it acid test. ACID. Affirmations. Affirmations is what you constantly say to yourself. And I'll give you a classic example of this because many years ago, a guy came to me and he says, you're going to have to be a good salesman if you want to actually succeed in a particular field. I said, no. I'm not into selling. That's not my gift. He says, well, if you're not into it, you will always end up working for somebody else. So you got to be able to sell yourself, sell your skill. So I said to him, how can I do this? He said, you're going to have to use a thing called positive affirmation. I says, well, what do you mean? He says, repeat to yourself every day that I'm the best salesman in the world. Something like that. And I started off by saying, things like, I love selling and I'm the best. I love selling and I'm the best. And I kept on saying it. over and over every day. It's amazing what repeating something every day can do to you and how it changes your outlook. And the more I repeat this to myself, the more I find myself studying and gravitating towards selling. When I realized this was happening, I began to change the concept. And I would say things like, I love leadership and I'm the best. I love being a husband and I'm the best. Things like that I was doing and so on. And what I've discovered is the more you keep repeating things to yourself over and over and over, the more you gravitate towards doing that things and the more that thing become easier to do. There's a saying that says, that which you persist in doing becomes easier to do. Not because the nature of the thing becomes less difficult, but by doing, your power to do increases. And as I say, resolve conflicts using a technique I learned many years ago called face wrap. Face wrap is very powerful, and this is the last thing I want to share on this. And I came across it and I thought, wow, this is awesome. Now, it says here that when you're dealing with a problem, the first thing you want to find out is what's the fault. In other words, what's the root cause of this problem? Let me use a diagram here, and this might help. Let me see if I could draw a tree and the branches and so on. Yeah. Now, what is the most important part of this tree? Well, the most important part of the tree is the root, not the branches, not the fruit. The fruit is as a result of the branches, and the branches is as a result of the root. If you cut this tree down around here, that tree can eventually grow back. But if you dig up the root and pull it out, you destroy the tree forever. So the most important part of that tree is the root. So when you come up to a problem, you want to identify the root. What is the root fault here? What is the root? Appearance is saying, how did I know about it? The cause is, who or what caused it? Who or what caused it? What effect is this having on me right now? If I don't do nothing about it, what's the effect or what's the impact that it's having on us? Whose responsibility is it to take action? What action should be taken? And how do we prevent this from happening again? And one of the things we're going to look at is prevention, somebody said, is better than cure, or a fence at the top is better than an ambulance at the bottom. So you want to make sure you do that. So the most important thing that you want to iron out here on this particular technique is, what is the fault? In other words, the root. What's the root cause? Because if you cannot find the root, you cannot eliminate it. You only be dealing with symptoms, and you see, symptoms is only temporary. It's like patches on a wound, so to speak. So the appearance is, how did you find out about it? How did it come to your attention? Who or what caused this to happen? What's the effect that it's having right now? What's the impact on us? Whose responsibility is it to put it right? What action should be taken? And how do we stop this thing from occurring? Again, sometimes we can't prevent it. Sometimes we can. that was a fast track through. I hope that makes absolute sense. Let me just come back to the chat room and then we go back from there. Greetings again, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Brother Michael, great to have you with us, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. And everyone else who is here. Great pleasure to have you with us. Thank you so much. Sister Pauline Gale, I designed an affirmation cushion of my name to encourage myself. Absolutely. Why not? Whatever works for you. Definitely. Whatever works for you, do it. And as long as it's working for you, it's perfectly fine. Is the little horns in Revelation 12 related to Daniel chapter 8? One of the things I'm going to do, and we're looking at that tomorrow, I'm hoping to get through Revelation, then go to Daniel, and to see whether or not they relate. People say they do. I don't know. I want to find out for myself. I really don't know the answer to that question at this moment, Jen. I'll have to go and study both of them to see whether the little horns in Revelation 12 relates to Daniel chapter 8. I no idea. I haven't looked at Daniel yet. But I certainly will do a cross-reference when I get to the book of Daniel. I don't know the answer to that. I have no idea. And as I say, there are those who believe they're connected. There are those who have different of views and opinion. Brothers and sisters, I'm going to have to stop here tonight because I have a funeral tomorrow and Friday, which I have to prepare for. So I'm going to have to cut it short tonight, just half an hour. And I will be back tomorrow, hopefully, with Book of Revelation. So I want to say a big thank you to everyone for dropping by tonight. Thank you so much. Sorry, I have to cut it short because I need to actually get some stuff done. So have a great night, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. And bless you all. Have a great, great evening. And look forward to seeing you guys very, very soon. Bye for now.